Okay, today we're going to look at another site that's associated with the well-known site of Gobekli Tepe, which has become this Neolithic empire known as Tas Tepelier. We seem to be going back and forth on a few of these, but really I'm just giving you information as it comes on these and as I can find it out. Today we're going to look over here at Certipe or Certipesi. It's more of a middle site, and you can see Sefer Tepe and Habetsavan Tepe are kind of surrounding it, and it looks like it would have been surrounded in ancient times by even smaller sites perhaps that we haven't found. Looking on Google Earth, one can get lost in this idea, and if you had the ability to see the little bumps on the ground and the topography a little bit better, it might be a little more evident. So one little closer look at this site, and here's another one that seems to be real close to a road. And it seems like there's a little bit of satellite type around it in some way, but there's a little site up here on the top of this. If we go a little closer and look in on it, you can see that it's really just a scalped stone hill. And this stone hill here, just, well, like a balding head, has a little twid of hair left up on top of it, which seems odd in itself to me somewhat, that you would think the erosion would be from the top down almost, as everything from gravity and tries to push. But as it's all been eroded away on this hill that's here, what's left was this little escarpment, and it's not really good enough soil to be used, and that's probably the only reason that they don't have a lot of things planted upon it. Starting to realize that each one of these sites, it looks like one of the major theme is that they're planted upon, and you'd think, why are they planting upon that instead of somewhere else? Of course, because of what we find up under it, but it looks like they had taken a lot of the soil from the surrounding area and filling this up, along with all of the chert and small pieces of rock that were around, and the chips that were left over from them making all of these T-pillars. This is another site that sadly has been already inundated by people taking from it, and it's known, so they kind of left it alone to this point. You can see this power pole that's here that's on one side of the hill, and the other side of the hill has already been dug into where the soil is there, and the T-pillars have been taken away in some cases. So one wonders how much might actually be left of this. This is just one hole showing you that they do have some good soil that's mixed in parts of it, but also because there's a big hole there are things that were taken out. And I don't know if it shows up in the shot here, but there looks like there's a real squareness to the end of this pit that's right here, and I can almost see a T-pillar sitting there that was pulled up out of this place, or pulled back this way and then pulled out. There's been a few of them found in a little village. It's about 6 miles southeast of here, so down off this way. And recently we've talked about a few of the anomalies, whether at one side it was buttons being shown and stuff of Gobekli Tepe, or of Ayanlar, which is way over west of here, and they showed some bulwark that looks like it's a preemptive fact of what might lead up to that incredible bulwark that's shown in Egypt. Very similar, and I've got a little couple of vids here that are going to connect that and actually show that these people had this at this time. The reason we're not finding it very much is because it looked like they kept them as sacred. like you used to do your mom's silverware and so on. Well, that was actually grandma's, wasn't it? Well, that was actually great grandma's, wasn't it? And so on. And their chinaware, if you will. Dishes. They were kind of important, but of course, once pottery came in, if they broke, you could fix them by just making another one. Whereas this stoneware wasn't something of that level. And it strangely shows that people were making pottery objects before they were using pottery. They were making them out of stone. I don't know if it shows up too well on here, but here's one of those T-pillars that they had from there. There's two of them here, and apparently two of them in a nearby village that were taken out of here. But this is the only one that seems to show some carving on it so far. There may be quite a few T-pillars still left up under there, but so far this preemptive of these four, because this isn't really excavated, this is just what's shown just here on the soil, just open, not an excavation point. I don't know if you make it out here, but on the side of the pillar with the arms and they come down to the belly that you see here, there's also this V grooving, like a chevron type pattern or a V necklace, something in there like we see in Catalhoyuk and San Lerfa Museum, and having those guys that have that V-neck pattern, so it's all real cool and popular. But one thing that's here is that it shows that he has what looks like a common tie. He's got a V-neck and a tie. Now in a modern day we know V-necks don't go with ties, but hey, these were the people that were heralding everything. I think it's neat that they show that he has a tie, and that's another weird thing. For it makes me think of another odd idea. Because in an odd way, it just suddenly makes me think of Fred Flintstone. And I talk a lot about how whenever I was a kid, how we thought that right before the Sumerians, everybody must have been Ugg and Fred Flintstone. And of course, everybody grew up with the Flintstones, especially during my era. Strange thing, he always had that tie that's there, and so we have this whole idea. And he had a leopard print outfit, and that goes with it too. He used to quarry a lot, and we're going to look at a quarry here from one of the other sites showing you that that used to go on too. In a modern day, we're more hooked up with the Jetsons and space rockets, but look at that Grand Poobah helmet that he had there, and these horned helmets, and we've shown that quite a bit in ancient societies and stuff, and of course the Sumerians and everything, and all the way through the Vikings, and people having actual horned helmets. And that symbol that's on the front of it too is quite showing, isn't it? Very telling. Another oddity is that Fred used to live in something that looked like a dolmen. And we see those scattered over this area that we're in concern talking about here in Caucasus Mountains, up through the Black Sea area and so on. But those dolmens actually go all the way through into the Orient and all the way back over west to the sea. And another lost civilization that people aren't really aware of and don't talk about too much. Now, I know that may not be a tie, because a lot of the other ones are shown where inside of his belt he had another thing that looked like an animal pelt hanging down, but that doesn't look like that. That really looks a lot more like a modern tie. So again, two of these pillars have also been found in a nearby city, so it's showing you that they had taken them. And that just makes you start to wonder, whenever you look at these mounds that are like this, how many of these sites were taken away? How many of these pillars were all taken away? Though it's an odd shape and it has a T on top of it, if you look at a lot of them, especially Gobekli Tepe, They made it look like a stone was sitting on top of a stone, making a T, even though they're made out of one, which lets you think that they used to make pillars the other way with the two, but it's more stable if you just make it out of one. So extra advancements that we haven't seen or found yet in humanity. And that's the later way people are making things. Although a lot of times we see the pillars, Rome, Greece, everywhere else, they have that capital on top of it, giving you that wider stance. It's the same type of thing that goes on. When you look at a site like this, you can see that there are places that just look conspicuous. There are circular areas that are in between things. And if you found something close to it associated with it, you'd be like, well, there might be something here. And what's up under that hill? Conspicuously, there's only 12 of these sites found so far at this point, but I'm here to tell you that there's probably a lot more. And that little valley that's trapped in between there, that doesn't really show any signs of it in there, were actually the fertile plains that those people have, and it looks somewhat square. And that hooks up with another Eden-esque idea that people had from way back when. This is pillars from Certipe, and this site looks like it's about the same size as that. Very similar. Kind of a medium site. Nowhere as big as like Karahan Tepe or, of course, Gobekli Tepe. And, of course, there has to be a big giant hub. There has to be a New York just as well as a New Jersey. And then there's some Hoboken out there, too. Just to use an example. What I always thought was neat about this one here is showing you the different sizes and thickness, but also there's just a common pillar that's there. People have said due to the weathering, just even sitting in the ground and things like that, this thing used to be perfectly squared at one time. Had sharpened edges on it. It makes you wonder how they were able to pull something like that off. Sure, now it looks rounded off and sandblasted, just like you were to take this thing if it was the size of a hot dog and put it in a coffee can with a whole bunch of Sharpie rocks and shake it around a bunch. It would take off all the sharp edges and smooth it out, but from what all of it's been in 10,000 years, earthquakes, shaking it like that, constant pressure of all the soils and things like that, it's not too hard to imagine that it's had some erosion other than that. And of course, during the time that it was open to the air, the thousands of years that it could have been possibly open to the air in the first point. There's showing up some anomalies in these places, like again we show this tie that people have in a modern day, showing something that looks like it there. And the T-pillar is the head, the neck, with a V-shaped neck. I kind of like those better. I'm not really a turtleneck kind of guy. And a tie here that goes on. It's another anomaly. Here we've got a button. Here's we got some of those bowls. Here's we got this. Here's a low lot of beads and things showing up in this place. And all of these are a plethora of items that are showing up thousands and thousands of years earlier. I think it shocked the community whenever they found out, yeah, here we go, about twice as long, and they got all this in a bag of chips. One could realize that only buttons had been found at one place, and someone said that they're found one at another, but you would imagine that they would have them everywhere. But then again, just like those bowls, if they were making them to any decent level, they would keep them. It would be something worth carrying all the way to your new place you were going to, and to keep up with it, and to pass it down, and pass it down, and pass it down. Where does it end? Well, it looked like some of it ended right there at the very first dynasties of ancient Egypt. I'll make a connection video coming up about the Neptunes and show you a connective there and those bowls and so on that'll make a connection coming into ancient pre-proto Egypt soon. But each one of these sites has differences and little things that are special, but you can guarantee that anything that anybody knew or had going on at one of these sites, they had going on at all. And each one of these sites is not the breadth of this. These people expanded out from different reaches, and the one in the far right didn't just keep going in left. He went out farther right, farther east, or farther west, or south, or north. Many directions these people went. They help herald civilization. So again, this Tapesi site is just one of the 12 that they have so far, and we'll probably in the future find out quite a few more, as I guess. And these T-pillars that are associated with them are not the only connective. You can't say if you don't have a T-pillar, you don't have this, you don't have that. Because along with them, they have a lot of these artifacts and flint work. In fact, some of these little smaller ones seem to show a whole lot more flint work going on. And perhaps they're being able to be kept by the other people. And through a community-wide effort, there are people doing all of this type of work while others are keeping them fed. And the startings of agriculture go along with food. A lot of times people, it seems, in a modern day just can't fathom this because they just go to the store, right? And things. But actually, if you just think about it, during the Wild Wild West and not too long ago, Little House on the Prairie and that type of thing there, they were having dwellings that were not much different than this right here. And while they were doing some farming and stuff going on, and he had some cattle to go on, that wasn't enough. I mean, if you ate all the beef up, here we go, and one family eating a whole cow doesn't happen. You have to share with others, and each one in turn taking turn giving you a part of their cow. And so throughout the year, just taking one or two cows from you and other people around are able to sustain the whole area. But in the in-between pause going hunting. And the wife and the kids are doing some gathering along with some gardening here, and it makes it all work. How long ago was that going on? I think it was going on before this. Not professional gardening, but people were actually Johnny apple seeding and spreading out grains and finishing off a field, and then the next year it would regrow again, and they were utilizing it. Taking it to a place that had real good soil and then starting to utilize it there is farming. But in the modern day, we really try to look over things like that as being a possibility. You look at a lot of these sites, though, and they seem to have a lot of potential around them, and I keep telling you, well, what's up under that hill over there, or what's up under that hill over there, because really, close to a lot of these sites, there could be ones that are in between. It looks like Tepe seems to be the central point of these few right here. But Harvetsavan is quite a bit closer than Sefer or Tapesi, which we're talking about now. And there could be one in between here and over here and over here. Now it looks like Gobekli Tepe way out over here is the main hub. And then over here you'd have something like Tepe that's the secondary site. So an A site and then a B site. And then little smaller satellites around them. And we can see that with our modern civilization by having a huge town like Dallas-Fort Worth, and then having other towns that are near it that are one direction of the other, like Ennis and so on, that are just out of the way, and then something like Greenville or Paris, Texas, there start to be a lot of smaller sites, and then of course there are smaller dwellings in between that are little unmentionables that don't have even a tenth of that, but maybe a tenth of the smaller sites. And it's not like there's not people living all over in different areas too. These are just places that seem to be selected as a hub for different people that are farming and hunting all in this area. It used to be a different area quite a bit. You see some lush green in areas here that they're still utilizing, And in that bottom left-hand corner, that perfect square plane of Atlantis idea, or Eden-esque plane. But this whole place used to have a whole lot more life on it. In effect, it used to be a different world. And luckily they buried all these up, so now we can peer back into it, and it's something that hasn't been, well, primarily hasn't been touched for long enough that we get a pretty decent idea of what's going on. But this site is something seems a little bit smaller, and it's a Certipe, and it seems like a site that you would see something more like this in Karahan Tepe is a little bit more of the hub situation, or they put 3 of the smaller ones together as a people and started doing this. It's a little bit larger of a hub. But here's that Fred Flintstone, because this whole area here has all been flattened off and taken down, you can see, and pillars left and so on. So almost the quarry that Fred used to work at somehow became the dwellings, and at some point became the great temple that satellite people lived all around. Just out of shot over here, what's up under that hill? What's up under that hill? What could be there? It's amazing. Some of these sites, now they're getting excavated, you can kind of see, but they've excavated this and then somebody flew over the top of it, and I can clearly see where they've been excavating at, and they know this place exists now. But I'll be darned if that isn't a perfect circle right here that's actually larger than the original, and you're actually looking at a minute part of the original. And here we go again with another season, and let's see what's here. But again, what's up under that hill? What's up under that hill? Getting to be somewhat overwhelming when you start looking at all these sites. And again, 12. Last one we looked at was Ionlar, way over here, showing you those bowls. And we're slowly but surely going through these again as information comes out on all these sites that seem to surround this Haran plain that's famous in the Bible and ancient stories and stuff. And we've talked a lot about that in other videos. And one wonders how many generations and thousands of years that was used as a farming type area for these people that are all surrounding it. And how many sites might like that have been originally in Haran, but because of people living there for over 9,000 years, just like this Certipe where they took a couple of pillars here not too long ago, one would think, how many times has that happened over and over again in sites that we may not ever know anything about? How many hills have been flat? How many T-pillars were taken and then chopped up back into 2 pieces instead of 1 and used somewhere? Just a thought here, though, and I thought I'd show you one of those interesting little standouts that are there, like this place, showing you that no, they weren't just doing this simplistic work. There's stuff that's so much more intricate. It's starting to boggle the mind again on the depth of what these people had going on, and we haven't found the everything. Sadly, we probably will never know the elven-like people that lived without leaving a trace. Are they a vanished race? Are they a lost civilization? Well, until we found it now, this actually was a lost civilization, but we find it now, and it's a connective. Connects a lot of things all the way from cave art and Cro-Magnon times all the way bound down through. And I'll make a video coming up that'll show you other connectives of these people, that Bolware, and coming into Egypt, and the whole Fertile Crescent, actually. And these people who had originally been attached onto this earliest empire known, heralding civilization. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. Hit a clicker right there. Make sure your bell's on. We'll see you soon. Peace.